President. Please be seated. The court is now in session. Today, the chamber will continue hearing the statement of victim impacts of civil party Ut Sun Lai. And then the chamber will start to hear a witness to TCW 933 in relation to Okrasang Security Center. And today there is a TPO staff, Bun Lam Hu, sitting next to the civil party to provide physical and mental assistance. Mr. Im Hui, please report the attendance of the parties and other individuals to today's proceedings. Mr. President, for today's proceeding, all parties to this case are present. Mr. Nguyen Chia is present in the holding cell downstairs. He has waived his right to be present in the courtroom. The waiver has been delivered to the greffier. The civil party who is here today to provide a victim impact statements is Ut Sun Lai. During the proceedings, there is a TPO staff, Bun Lam Hu, sitting close to him. The civil party and TPO staff are already in this courtroom. Today there is a reserve of witness to TCW 933. The witness confirms that to his or her best knowledge, he or she has no relationship by blood or by law to any of the two accused, Nguyen Chia and Khieu Samphan, or to any of the civil parties admitted in this case. The witness took a note before the Iron Club statue this morning. Thank you, Mr. President. President, thank you. First, the chamber decides on the request by Nguyen Chia. The chamber has received a waiver from Nguyen Chia dated 2nd March 2016, which states that due to his health, headache, back pain, he cannot sit or concentrate for long, and in order to effectively participate in future hearings, he requests to waive his right to be present at the 2nd March 2016 hearing. Having seen the medical report of Nguyen Chia by the duty doctor for the accused at the ECCC dated 2nd March 2016, which notes that Nguyen Chia has back pain and dizziness when he sits for long, and recommends that the chamber shall grant him his request so that he can follow the proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs. Based on the above information and pursuant to Rule 81.5 of the ECCC internal rules, the chamber grants Nguyen Chia his request to follow today's proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs via an audio-visual means. The chamber instructs the AV unit personnel to link the proceedings to the room downstairs so that Nguyen Chia can follow. That applies for the whole day. And now, the floor is given to the International Deputy Co-Prosecutor to resume his questioning. You may now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honors. Good morning, Council. And good morning, Mr. Ut Sun Lai. Thank you for coming back again today. I have a few more questions for you on behalf of the co-prosecutors. When we left off yesterday, you had just confirmed that one of the villagers who had informed you about the execution of your wife and children and the other women and children was an individual named Tol. who had personally witnessed these killings. You also stated yesterday that one of the villagers who informed you of these killings had described some of the children attempting to run away when they were about to be executed. Is the individual who told you about the children trying to run away the Toll who you said personally witnessed these crimes?
Civil party. Thank you for the question. Good morning, Mr. President, Your Honors. The villager name, the villager's name was Toll. He was the one who transported the Vietnamese descendant to the execution place. He said he secretly looked at the incident. Tang Hin, the militia man, chased him away when when the militia man saw that he was observing the incident. The children, small babies, were chased by the Khmer Rouge at that time, so that those children could be caught and smashed against the tree trunks, and the killing happened in Krche. That is the information I have received from Toll.
You just referred to the children as small babies. Can you tell us what was the age of your children at the time that they were killed?
Answer. Children and small babies were killed, and among them there were my 3 children, 1 son, 2 daughters. Sotira was born in 1978. My other child was Sok Sotiria was born in 1975, and the younger child was Sotida, who was about 1 year old. The first child was born in 1973. Correction from interpreter.
And do you know why your wife and children were targeted for execution?
Civil party. Thank you. All I know is that my wife and children were subject to the execution. They was among the targeted groups contemplated by the Khmer Rouge. My wife had a mother of Vietnamese ancestor, so they could not avoid the arrest and execution by those executioners. And another reason is that our background was well known by those Khmer Rouge, and they knew that I was a former teacher in the previous regime and married a half-blooded Vietnamese wife.
Do you know why, in addition to your wife, your children were also taken to be executed?
Civil party, thank you. I knew about this long time ago, but I had no means or no choice to help them, and I was not able to flee anywhere else besides staying in my location. Cooperative people in the cooperative, those who were responsible for cooperatives were observing our activities every day. So I was so terrified. I could do nothing but cry to relieve my pain and suffering. My suffering was like people was cutting off and removing my internal organs. So this was the misery and the tragedy rather, happening to me and my family. I have lost my respectful father. I have lost him. And my co-worker told me to be careful that my name was in the list, Nghiêng Xuân Lai. After I had lost my father, my mother-in-law, and my wife, as well as my children, I was suspecting that I would die one day. On 2nd December 1978, I could hear the sound of explosion, and at that time I was hoping that I would be recused from the brutal regime. And at the time I said to myself that I wanted them to come and help me right away.
Mr. Uchsun Lai, you explained that you believe your wife was targeted for execution because she had Vietnamese background. Do you know why your children that you had with your wife were also targeted for execution?
Civil party, thank you. I know it clearly. My wife was half-blooded Vietnamese, and my children was considered Vietnamese descendants. It was known by the Khmer Rouge, and the announcement and policy of the Khmer Rouge was that when digging the grass, they had to uproot the grass. So the Vietnamese descendants were considered as KGB agents. So they had our background in mind. So they had the information, and they knew the background of those who were working in the K1 and K5, Core 1 and Core 1 and Core 5.
You just mentioned a policy. You just mentioned a policy that you heard, that when cutting the grass, you had to dig up the roots of the grass. Can you explain what that policy meant?
Civil party, thank you. I was not a politician, and now I am not also a politician. The politics mean the trick. The slogan that when when they cut up the grass, they had to dig up the root of the grass. So they had to eradicate everything. It was my understanding at the time that I could not flee anywhere else, and I could not evade what was going to happen to me.
You mentioned earlier this morning that one of the perpetrators of the execution was a man named Uk Tang Hin. Do you remember the names of any of the other individuals that participated in the killings of the women and children that you have described?
បាទសូមអរ
Civil party, thank you. The perpetrators were known by me. They had been living in my village, and at the time they were militiamen for cooperatives and those genocidal perpetrators. Ok Tang Hin, the chief. Now he is living secretly in Ariksan. Number 2, Adam. He had a curly hair and he was not so big. He did not have big bill. Tong Ham had a big bill. 5, Chung, Chung. As far as the chamber is concerned, the senior leaders of the Democratic Cambodia and those who were responsible for the Democratic Cambodia were seen playing the most important roles at the time. And because of the national reconciliation, only 2 groups of these people were subject to the trial. Those people, the direct perpetrators, were walking in the cooperative day and night to observe our activities.
Do you know if the individuals who you just mentioned, Dam, Chung, Uk Tang Hin, if they received orders from elsewhere, or did they decide to perpetrate these killings on their own?
Answer. They not did those acts on their own initiative. It was a secret plan communicated to them. Those people, Hok Tang Hin, were the children, was the child of the peasants at the time. Tang Hin was assigned to climb up the sugar palm tree, and he was a secret agent in the cooperative. He did not act on his own initiative. There was a secret order from the upper echelon, and that secret order went down the line.
Yesterday, in your testimony, in addition to the killing of your wife and children, you mentioned some other members of your family who were killed during the period of Democratic Kampuchea. Specifically, you mentioned Nguyen Thi Bay, your mother-in-law, Sa Kim Na, your sister-in-law, and Che Chan Visal. Can you first clarify for us what was your wife's relation to Che Chan Visal?
បាទ
Answer. My wife's name was Sakamni, and Sakamna was her sibling. They knew that my wife and her younger sibling were the children of Chai Kam Ain and Vieng Tibe. So Khmer Rouge knew very well that they were the children of Vietnamese ancestors. It was a fortunate that they had been killed. My wife and the younger sibling of her did not know Vietnamese. During Buddhist rituals, they spoke only Khmer. And at one time, when there was an argument in the village, I asked my wife what was going on since they were arguing in Vietnamese, but she said she did not know because she did not understand the language. I felt happy for some of the Vietnamese who had gone to Vietnam 3 or 4 months before that incident happened. And at that time, I did not think that the ordeal would happen to my family and family members, but it was it was a wrong understanding. They killed everyone, even the young infant, young babies. So they were extreme. The Khmer Rouge was extreme.
I'd like to ask you specifically about your mother-in-law. Do you have any additional information about when she died or how she died?
បាទសូមអរគុណ
Answer. Thank you. Regarding my mother-in-law, Vieng Tibe, 3 months or 4 months later, after the 7th January 1970 something, I heard that Vietnamese people were invited to board a truck to Phnom Bridge. The road leads to Vietnam. I did not know how the execution methods were used. And they executed people. I learned this information from the driver, Ang. He told me that my mother-in-law was among the group, and after he dropped off those people in the Democratic Cambodia chased the driver to come back. That is what I learned from him. So I knew this information only after the liberation, said the civil party.
Mr. Civil Party, I'd like to read to you an excerpt from your supplemental information form to see if that refreshes your memory in any way in regards to what you know about what happened to your mother-in-law. This is at E3/4845, English ERN 01057867, French 0092.
President, please slow down. International Deputy Co-Prosecutor, please read a bit slower so that the interpreter could catch up.
Thank you, Mr. President. My apologies. I'll begin again. It's English ERN 01057867, French 00923036, and Khmer 00613037. Mr. Uch Sun Lei, this is what you stated there, quote, "In late 1978, my mother-in-law, Nguyen Thi Bay, who was an ethnic Vietnamese, was asked by Khmer Rouge militiamen to get on a truck at Krakor Pagoda, located in Krakor Commune, Krache District, Krache Province. She was supposed to be deported to Vietnam. However, I learned later that she and other Vietnamese had never been deported to Vietnam. They were taken away for execution along the way to Mountain 5000, located in Snuol District, Krache Province," close quote. Mr. Civil Party, does this accord with your recollection that you just described to us?
Civil Party, thank you. It accorded with my statement. Pol Pot clique invited all of them to get on a track so that they could be put in a group at Krakau Pagoda in Kraches province, and that road was leading to Vietnam, Tay Ninh. And I did not know about the method of the execution. And as I said earlier, I learned the information from the driver of the truck, who later on came to tell me.
You stated and described yesterday the forced marriage of your father-in-law following the execution of your mother-in-law. Did your father-in-law survive the democratic Kampuchea period?
Answer. My father-in-law's name was Chai Kam Ain, alias Smien E. He was a clerk in Karachi province. He was forcibly asked to marry Minh Lane, who was at the time about 60 years old. They were the 11th couple. The 11th couple was Chai Kim Ain with Minh E. And these two people, my father-in-law and his wife, his later wife, were then killed. I knew that my father-in-law at the time, during the marriage, was wearing the kroma on his head, and the same happened to the later wife of him. They were crying, and I knew that they did not love each other and want to get married. I did not know how the execution were taking place, but I heard that Smien E was killed at Tassaum, north of Kroko, Kraches district, Kraches province. I did not know how the killing happened. I really want to find the remains of their bones so that I could gather and hold the rituals, the Buddhist ritual for them, but it was in vain. I could not find all those remains.
Do you know why your father-in-law was killed?
To my knowledge, he was killed for the following reasons. First, he was a former officer. Since the colonial regime and the previous regime, that is the Sihanouk regime, and they also knew that he was a clerk of the Krache provincial town. Second, he was accused of being an agent for KGB or Vietnamese spy, as he married a Vietnamese woman, and his offspring were considered half Vietnamese blood. These were the true reasons, and for that reason he would not be spared. His wife and children were all killed, and he felt so upset and saddened that he was forced to marry another woman who was in a third category. The first category, that is the full rights people, and the second category was the candidate group of people, and the third group were the depositees, and they were the targets of being disposed of by the Khmer Rouge. And these are the reasons that I concluded he was the target of being arrested and killed by the Democratic Cambodia regime.
Mr. Civil Party, this will be my last question to you. But you have also mentioned a number of brothers and sisters of your late wife and their children who passed away during the period of democratic Kampuchea. And I would like to invite you to tell us if you know any of the circumstances of their deaths, of your brothers-in-law and sisters-in-law, when they were killed, how they were killed, and why they were killed, if you know.
The arrest and the execution by the militia group of the Democratic Cambodia was done secretly, and that they said that they need to use bullets to kill those people. For example, the husbands were sent to cut wood far away, while their children and wives were sent to Koh Trong, that is an island in the middle of the river. And if they were to cross to the other side of the river, that would be the central zone, while the other side was sector 505. And of course, we were prohibited from crossing from one sector to another. So it was easier for them to execute those people on the island in the middle of the river. Besides my wife and children, there were also my in-laws, that is Sakamnar, the younger sister of my wife. And Chen Saim was also killed. They were all accused of having Vietnamese blood and of being agents for KGB. Sarin and Sarat were also executed, and that was based on their slogan that when a grass was removed, its roots also be removed. So it seems that not only the mothers were killed, but the mothers and the children were killed together. And that was painful for those who survived. And this execution was near the time that the regime fell. I myself was also afraid that my day would come. I lost all my relatives, my children, my wife. They killed those people without any mercy. And that is the reason I want to ask the senior leaders of the Democratic Cambodia regime why they had a policy even to kill the baby and the young infants. Is it because so that you become immortal? President interrupts. Civil Party, you will have an opportunity toward the end of your statement to put the questions to the accused. And the questions shall be put through me, the president of the chamber. Right now, you need to concentrate to respond to the question put to you by the Deputy International Co-Prosecutor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I actually have no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Civil Party, for being with us here today. I understand that these are difficult issues to discuss, and I appreciate it.
President Judge Laverne, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Good morning to all of you, and good morning, Civil Party. I have a question to put to you. You said that you were living in Region 505. So, do you have any information, or what can you tell us about the organization of that Region 505?
Thank you, Your Honor. I lived in Sector 505. That was in Kratie Province, and it was an autonomous sector, which means it was not under the administration of the zone. This is to my understanding. The chief of Sector 505 used to study at Kosama Lycée together with me. His name was Bonan. However, later on he was also executed by the East Zone Committee. That's all I can say about this autonomous sector. And I had no knowledge about the other administration of the sector.
Fine. So what you're telling us is that this autonomous sector was not part of the zone. So do you know who he had to report to? Was there some kind of organization above Sector 505, and what was or who was above Sector 505?
I did not know the detailed structures of the sector committee or the zone committee. What I knew unofficially, the area was under the leadership of a sector committee, and that was separate from the zone committee management. Only later on I learned that the Sector 505 committee was accused of betraying the ONCA, and later on the committee was replaced by someone from the Northeast Zone, and later on the person from the Northeast was replaced by those from the East Zone, and later on from the Southwest Zones. And that's all I knew about the subsequent replacements of various committees within the sector.
So, if I understood well what you said, you witnessed a series of successive purges among the leaders of Sector 505. So can you tell us, if you remember, who was at the head of Sector 505 when your wife and when the members of when your in-laws were executed?
Est-ce que c'était...
Was it the original cadres, or was it cadres from the Northeast Zone, or from the East Zone, or from the Southwest Zone, or from other zones, if you remember?
Allow me to clarify the matter, Your Honor. The former teachers of the previous regime, including myself, fled to the forest, and some of them were later on promoted to become sectors of Sector 505 Committee, Bona, and his alias was Kamra G, who was in charge of Sector 505. And then there was teacher Sum Son, who changed his name to Kamra Jam later on. He was subsequently sent to become ambassador in Korea. Some other teachers who used to criticize me later on killed because they were accused of betraying the revolution in the Sector 505. So they purged them all and replaced by those cadres from the Northeast Zone. And about a month later, those Northeast cadres were accused of being traitors, and they were purged and replaced by cadres from the East Zone. Subsequently, the East Zone cadres were accused of betraying the revolution, and they were purged and replaced by those cadres from the Southwest Zone. That's all I know.
Thank you for this clarification. What I'd like to know now is when your wife and your children, when your in-laws were executed, as far as you remember, who was leading Sector 505? Who were the cadres who were leading Sector 505 when that happened? Were these cadres from the Northeast Zone, from the East Zone, or cadres from the Southwest Zone? If you remember, of course. If you don't remember, just simply tell me that you don't remember.
I was not familiar with the upper level administration structure. I only knew that the Sector 505 committee was accused of betraying the revolution, and then they were replaced by the Northeast cadres. And subsequently, those Northeast cadres were accused of betrayal and replaced by the East Zone cadres, and later on those East Zone cadres were replaced by cadres from the Southwest Zone, and I did not know those cadres' names.
My question did not relate to the names of the cadres, but to the dates. You said, unless I'm mistaken, that your wife and your children were executed in September 1978, if I remember correctly. So, in September 1978, were the leading cadres from the East Zone, from the Northeast Zone, or from the Southwest Zone? Do you understand my question? It's in relation to the dates here, and in relation to who was leading the sector at that time. Of course, I understood the succession of events. I understood that some people were accused of treason, but my question is, do you remember, or do you know if in September 1978, when your wife was executed, do you remember who was leading Sector 505?
Thank you, and I do understand your question. From September through December, Comrade Bund was the one who was in charge, and Bund came from the southwest zone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Civil Party, for this clarification. I have no further questions to put to the Civil Party.
President, thank you, Judge. And I'd like to hand the floor now to the defense teams. First, to the defense team for Nuon Chea to put a question to the Civil Party if you have any. Sunarun. The defense team for Nuon Chea do not have questions for this Civil Party. Thank you. President, thank you. And finally, I'd like to hand the floor to the defense team for Khieu Sampon to put question to the Civil Party if you have any. Kung Sampon. Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honors, and good morning, Mr. Civil Party. My name is Kung Sampon. I am the co-counsel for Mr. Khieu Sampon. And I have some questions to put to you. My first question is in relation to where you lived in Krathi province. Can you tell the chamber whether the Liberation Force or the Khmer Rouge came to your area? Answer. Thank you. And again, good morning, Mr. President, Your Honors, and good morning, Defense Council. Krathi province was liberated first in that zone. At that time, the United Liberation Front actually liberated the country before the announcement of the coup against Samdai Sihanouk. In fact, it was liberated on the 5th of March 1970 before any other provinces. At that time, the revolutionary force was so strong. All youths, male and female, joined the revolution. Teachers also joined the movement. I live in Krakow village, Krathi commune, Krathi district in Krathi province. Question. Yesterday you stated about the exchange of conversation between you and other teachers, that you didn't join the revolution with them. Can you tell the chamber when did those teachers, that is your colleagues who actually went to the forest to join the revolution? Answer. My teachers' colleagues went to join the revolution since 1968, that is prior to 1970. They were senior teachers and professors at Kusuma College, and they tried to track down other teachers from the same group in order to join the force. And among us, I was the only one who refused to join the revolution for the following reasons. First, I was from a poor peasant class. When I said so, they said that was the class that the revolution wanted, and that I should know that the sun would rise from the east, and if the rooster did not sing, the sun would still rise. Although we may not have enough food to eat, but we have to enter and to complete our movement in the revolution. Council interrupts. Thank you, Civil Party. I heard that yesterday, so there is no need for repetition, and allow me to move on to another date. And that is in relation to the transfer of your mother-in-law. As well as the date that your father-in-law died. Can you tell the chamber when your mother-in-law was sent to Vietnam, and that you said later on she was killed while en route? Answer. My mother-in-law was arrested in 1978. Question. Do you recall the month of her arrest? Answer. It happened between October or November of 1978. Question. Yesterday, you also testified that your father-in-law was forced to marry another woman, and you made mention of this event again this morning. Can you tell us when he was arranged to marry another woman? That is after the loss of your mother-in-law. Answer. I conclude that my mother-in-law was transferred in October 1978, and my father-in-law was forced to marry another woman in around November of 1978. Although after he remarried, he was monitored by the militia whether he consummated with his wife or whether they said anything else while they were together. And as a result, Smin Ni, that is my father-in-law, was taken away and killed. Question. From whom did you know that your father-in-law was monitored by the militia after he remarried? Answer. The militia had to monitor those targeted individuals at night time. I heard dogs barking at night, and I knew that they were deployed to monitor those people, and that's how I learned about this. I myself was the subject to be monitored at night by the militia group. What I did, or whom I spoke to, or whether I quietly wept. We were in a situation that we were under constant monitoring by the militia group. Question. A while ago, you stated that those militiamen were children of the villagers who were in the proletarian class at the base. Can you tell the chamber whether you know some names of those militiamen who monitored your activity or other people's activities? Answer. I know all those militiamen because they patrol in the area, and the chief was Oktang Him. Then Dam, Mom Hieng, Sruj, and Chung. And these were the cruel men of the militia. They monitored the activities of the 17 April people at night, and next morning they would be sent for re-education and they would disappear. Question: the names of those militiamen that you have just described, did they monitor the activity of your father-in-law after he remarried? Answer: yes, that is correct. Question: does this mean these militiamen whose names you described actually worked as militiamen from the 1970 through to 1979? Answer: yes, that is correct. Those militiamen started working since 1970 through 1975 and continued their militiamen activities through 1979, and after that they dispersed. Question: can you tell the chamber the leadership structure in the cooperative, in the district, or at the sector? That is, were there changes within the leadership structure in your area? And this is partly answered by you in response to Judge Lavange's question. You made mention of 4 successions in the autonomous sector 505. Answer: I learned of the successions through the announcement made by the cooperative chief. On every 10th, 20th, and 30th day of each month, there would be a meeting held and the announcement would be made. Then they made mention of the names of these people, including Chuk and Jack Gray, that they were accused of traitors. And the party, through its activity, those people were replaced by other cadres from the southwest zone. Question: allow me to reconfirm your statement. You made mention that the cooperative chief, who was in the position since 1970, was the same person in this position from the 1970 through to 79? Answer: it seems there was no change of the cooperative leadership. The person was in the position till the end of the regime. Question: what about the commune committee? Were you aware of any successive changes within the commune committee? Answer: it seems that the commune committee was not changed. I only saw the same people at the cooperative and the community leadership. Question: what about the district committee? Did you know any person from the district committee, for example, through meetings? Answer: from the meetings that I attended, and be more specific, in 1973, that is during the 200 days and nights of aerial bombardment, Professor T. Alt came to open a conference there, and all former teachers were invited to attend that conference. and the conference was labeled the Conference for the Intellectuals. And that was a major meeting that I attended, and besides, I attended meetings organized by the cooperative chief.
Lawyer, my previous question was about the district committee. Did you know some of them, and did you personally know them in particular?
But
Answer. In the Pol Pot's time, Bươn was part of the district committee. He was the outstanding one, and I could recall that name until now. Question. Was he the chief of the district committee until the end of the regime, or was he replaced by someone else later on? Answer. Bươn was assigned to be in charge of a cooperative in the district at the time, and there was no reshuffle. No one came to replace him, and he was in that position until the liberation of the front. Question. Regarding Region 505, it was an autonomous sector, as you said. Do you recall the structure of that sector 505? Was there any impact on the base areas in that sector after the change of the structure of that sector? Answer. Every time the district committees were replaced, I could recall that Jait was part of the district committee later on. He or she was the teacher in chemistry. He had a relationship with dozens of cadres, and later on he was accused of betraying Angka, and he was sent away and replaced by someone else. Question. In relation to your father-in-law, why did he die? Answer. I told the court already. My father was a former clerk in Krojes commune. He was a former servant, civil servant in Sihanouk regime. And reason number two, he married a half-blooded Vietnamese woman, Queen Thi Bay. These were the reasons leading to the execution of him. Question. Do you recall the location where he was executed? Did you learn about his execution later on? Answer. Militiamen took him to be killed. I told the court already. He was killed at Nop Kba Tun Saong, north of Krok Ko, this commune, Krojes district, Krojes province. I cannot tell the court the exact location where he was killed. Question. You told the court about the time when he was forcibly asked to get married, and later on he was monitored after the marriage. Can you tell the court when lastly you knew that he had been killed or he disappeared? Answer. He was forced to get married, and later on, as I said, he died. He was killed in 1978. And during the times, couples were immediately arranged to be in the marriage. As you know, in 1978, the front was established in Cheungsnul, Karachi province, and that was the time when the liberation troops came to recuse us, and he was killed at Ronop Cheung Sao. Lawyer, Mr. President, I am done. President, thank you. Mr. Oich Sun Lai, now you can make the victim impact statements, if any, or you may put questions to the accused through me, the President of the Chamber. You have the floor now. Oich Sun Lai. Good morning once again, Mr. President of the Chamber. I have two questions through you, Mr. President, to put to the two accused who are present in this courtroom and in the room downstairs. My first question: why did the Khmer Rouge have a policy to gather up small babies and children as well to be killed? My second question is, why the Democratic Cambodia took those who practiced the Buddhist religion, including my father who was Acha, to be killed, and why were they accused to be those who betraying the Angkar? Did Khmer Rouge want themselves to be gods and heathens? My father was killed because he burned incense to pay respects to Buddhas. These are my two questions to be put to the accused. And I am surviving. I survived the regime, and this is the last chance that I can address the chamber and tell the world that the genocidal acts were committed by those who were part of the Democratic Cambodia or Khmer Rouge time, and these people were to be responsible for those crimes and acts. So I am done now, Mr. President. Please direct my question to the accused. President, thank you. The Chamber wishes to inform you, Mr. Oich Sun Lai, pursuant to Internal Rule 21(1)(d) of the ECCC, which states that at all stages of the proceedings, the Chamber shall inform you of the right of the accused to remain silent. On 8 January 2015, in response to the question of the Chamber, the co-accused reaffirmed their position to exercise their right to remain silent. During that hearing, the Chamber also notes that the co-accused maintain their position to remain silent unless and until such time the Chamber is informed otherwise by the co-accused or their counsels. On that day of the hearing, the Chamber instructed the co-accused and or their counsels to inform the Chamber in a timely and efficient manner should the accused resolve to waive the right to remain silent and be willing to respond to questions by the bench or relevant parties at any stage of the proceedings. As of today, the Chamber is not informed that the co-accused have changed their position and thus agreed to provide their responses to questions. Under the criminal procedural codes, national legislation, and international laws, the Chamber cannot compel the accused to respond to the question as long as they do not agree to it while exercising their right to remain silent. Please be informed of Mr. Ojsun Lai. I am grateful to you, Mr. Ojsun Lai. The hearing of victim impact statement of you as a civil party, which you stated that when you went through that bad experience, has come to an end now. Your statement can contribute to the ascertainment of the truth. You may be accused. You may return to your residence or to any places you wish to go. I wish you good luck, good health, and prosperity in your life. Thank you, Mr. Bun Lam Hua, TPO staff. As far as you are concerned, the hearing of the statement by Ojsun Lai in relation to the treatment of Cham Vietnamese and former official in the Khmer Republic has come to an end now. You may be accused as well. Court officer, please work with the vessels to send Mr. Ojsun Lai to the place where he wishes to go and his residence. And after the break, the Chamber will start to hear 2 TCW 933 in relation to Old Kansang Security Center. It is now convenient time for a short break, and the Chamber will take a break now until 10:30, from which the Chamber will resume its hearing.